From the moment we interact with others, we begin to set a silent standard. Every gesture, every response, every choice becomes a signal that informs people what we are willing to tolerate. When we accept being overlooked, we teach others that our presence is optional. When we accept harsh words without resistance, we imply that our feelings can be disregarded. Without realizing it, we are always instructing others in how to value us. This teaching does not always happen in loud confrontations or explicit declarations. More often, it is hidden in the subtle choices we make daily. The way we stay quiet when someone interrupts us speaks louder than words. The way we forgive without conversation tells people what we are willing to endure. Silence, tolerance, and avoidance are also lessons, and they may set a standard lower than we ever intended. People are not mind readers, and they don't magically know how we want to be treated. They learn from our behavior, from what we demand and what we dismiss. If you consistently overextend yourself to please others, they will believe it is natural to take advantage of your time. If you minimize your accomplishments, others may assume it is acceptable to minimize them too. We don't only teach with words, we teach with patterns. Think of the workplace where this lesson becomes especially clear. If you take on extra responsibilities without acknowledgement or compensation, you are showing that your effort comes cheaply. Colleagues and leaders may begin to rely on you without respect for balance. On the other hand, if you set clear boundaries around your role, others begin to understand that your contributions are valuable. The treatment you receive is a mirror of the standard you reinforce. In relationships, the same principle applies with undeniable force. If you repeatedly excuse thoughtless behavior in the name of love, you inadvertently teach that love can exist without respect. If you allow consistent lateness, broken promises, or dismissive tones, you teach that your time and emotions carry little weight. Over time, these lessons shape how others engage with you, not because they intend harm, but because you gave permission without realizing it. Our upbringing often influences the standard we set. Many of us were taught to avoid conflict at any cost, to smile even when we are hurt, and to prioritize harmony over honesty. While these lessons may have been useful for survival, they often undermine our self-worth as adults. When we do not unlearn them, we create relationships where we absorb the pain of others in silence. Without adjustment, we keep teaching that our comfort is negotiable. It is important to understand that this is not about blame, but about awareness. People act according to the rules they are given, and we are the ones who write those rules. If someone continuously disregards your boundaries, ask yourself, did I enforce them clearly, or did I allow them to blur? Every time you make an excuse for someone's behavior, you reset the standard. Every time you let something slide, you confirm what will be tolerated tomorrow. Teaching others how to treat you begins with how you treat yourself. If you do not respect your own needs, others will not magically do it for you. When you neglect rest, your body teaches that exhaustion is acceptable. When you deny your own emotions, you teach that your feelings are not worth honoring. Self-respect is the foundation because others mirror the example you live more than the words you speak. This principle also applies to the energy we project. If you constantly downplay your worth, others will adjust their perception downward. If you carry yourself with confidence and clarity, people sense that there are lines they cannot cross. Teaching others is not only about what you say no to, but also about what you radiate. Your posture, your tone, your presence all reinforce the message of how you expect to be treated. Children offer a perfect example of how quickly people learn standards. When a child throws a tantrum and a parent gives in, the child learns that persistence brings reward. When a parent holds firm with kindness, the child learns respect and boundaries. Adults are not so different. Every time someone tests your boundaries, they are waiting for you to show them the rules. Your response becomes the lesson they carry forward. This teaching also plays out in friendships. If you are always the one reaching out, planning, and making sacrifices, you may notice that your friends stop putting in effort. It is not because they are cruel, but because you have taught them that imbalance is acceptable. Conversely, if you express your needs and allow space for reciprocity, you teach that friendship is a two-way exchange. The treatment you receive reflects the lessons you have given. Consider how forgiveness operates in this framework. Forgiveness without accountability teaches that actions have no consequences. Forgiveness with conversation and boundaries teaches that mistakes can be repaired but not repeated. We often confuse kindness with passivity, but true kindness involves clarity. People cannot respect what they do not understand, and they cannot value what you do not defend. The way you forgive also teaches others how to approach you. Even in small social interactions, this principle holds weight. When a stranger cuts in line and you say nothing, the lesson is absorbed instantly. When someone interrupts and you let it pass, they may do it again without thought. Small moments accumulate into patterns that define your relationships. Over time, the sum of these moments creates the standard that others expect to follow. You are always teaching whether you intend to or not. The fear of rejection often keeps us from teaching effectively. We worry that if we demand respect, people will leave. But the opposite is often true. The right people stay because they admire your clarity, and the wrong people leave because they cannot exploit you. This is the natural filtering process of life. By setting a standard, you are not pushing people away, you are drawing the right people closer. The courage to teach others how to treat you requires consistency. One firm moment is not enough if the next time you waver. People are quick to recognize loopholes, and they will follow the easiest path available. If your boundary shifts under pressure, the standard dissolves. Strength lies not in harshness, but in steady repetition. Reminding others through words and action that your worth is steady and non-negotiable. Over time, the lessons you teach accumulate into a reputation. People know how to approach you because your standard is clear. They know which lines cannot be crossed and which behaviors will not be tolerated. This is not about intimidation, but about integrity. When people see that your treatment of yourself matches what you expect from them, respect follows naturally. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about creating space where relationships can thrive. Many confuse boundaries with rejection, but in truth, they are invitations to connect more honestly. When you set a boundary, you are saying, this is how I can show up fully without losing myself. It is not a punishment, it is clarity. Without that clarity, relationships often become tangled in confusion and resentment. Imagine a boundary as a fence with a gate, not a brick wall. The fence marks where your responsibility ends and another's begins. The gate allows love, respect, and trust to pass through freely while keeping harm or disrespect outside. Without that fence, anyone can wander into your space with their demands, moods, or chaos. The lack of limits may feel generous, but over time it leaves you drained and unprotected. Healthy boundaries start with self-awareness. You cannot tell others where the line is if you do not know it yourself. Ask, what behavior drains me? What words hurt me? What actions make me feel small? Your answers become the blueprint for your limits. Without this reflection, you may allow people to repeatedly step on parts of you that are fragile, not because they are cruel, but because you never marked the territory. In families, boundaries are often misunderstood. We are taught that loyalty means sacrifice without question. Yet loyalty without boundaries quickly turns into suffocation. A parent who never allows a child to say no teaches compliance, not respect. A partner who demands constant access teaches control, not love. Healthy families allow individuality, and boundaries are the tool that keeps individuality intact while still holding connection. In friendships, boundaries prevent imbalance. If you are always the listener, but never the one listened to, the friendship becomes one-sided. If you always lend money, but never see it returned, resentment builds. Boundaries say, I want this friendship, but it cannot cost me my dignity or my stability. They are not ultimatums. They are conditions that preserve the possibility of genuine care without hidden debts. Boundaries also matter in the workplace, where expectations can easily blur. An employee who answers emails at midnight teaches that availability is limitless. A leader who never communicates deadlines clearly teaches that chaos is acceptable. By stating clear boundaries, when you are available, what work belongs to you, how you expect to be spoken to, you set a professional standard that fosters mutual respect. Work thrives when boundaries are present, not when they are ignored. Some people avoid setting boundaries because they fear being labeled as selfish. But selfishness takes without regard for others, while boundaries protect both sides. Saying no to something that harms you is not selfish. It is wise. Saying yes to everything creates false generosity that eventually curdles into bitterness. Boundaries allow your yes to mean something because it comes from freedom, not obligation. Think of boundaries as the rules of a safe game. Without rules, people get hurt and chaos takes over. With rules, everyone knows how to play fairly and joy can flourish. Relationships without boundaries are exhausting because no one knows what is allowed. Relationships with boundaries are energizing because everyone understands where respect begins and ends. The rules protect the game, not ruin it. Boundaries are also a form of honesty. When you do not set them, you force others to guess what hurts you or assume you are fine with everything. This leads to misunderstandings, disappointment, and silent resentment. By stating your needs clearly, you give people the chance to meet them. You allow others to love you accurately instead of leaving them confused and frustrated by unspoken expectations. Children especially benefit from learning boundaries early. When a child is taught to say no respectfully, they grow into adults who protect themselves from exploitation. When a child is taught that their body and emotions deserve respect, they develop confidence in relationships. Boundaries are not just rules for others, they are lessons in self-worth. Teaching boundaries to children plants seeds for healthy self-respect that lasts a lifetime. Boundaries are tested most in romantic relationships. The intensity of love can blur lines and passion can disguise control. But love without respect is fragile, and respect requires limits. If your partner mocks your dreams, interrupts your voice, or pressures your body, boundaries are the way you protect your heart. They do not weaken intimacy, they deepen it, because real intimacy can only exist where both people feel safe. There will always be people who resist your boundaries. Some will call you cold, dramatic, or difficult. But their resistance does not mean you are wrong. It means your boundaries are working. The ones who benefit from your lack of limits will complain the loudest when you finally set them. True friends, true partners, but true colleagues will adjust because they value the relationship more than unchecked access. Boundaries are also an act of self-love. Every time you enforce one, you remind yourself that you are worthy of respect. You affirm that your time, energy, and emotions matter. Even if no one else applauds you, your own soul feels the dignity of that protection. Over time, this strengthens your confidence and changes the way you carry yourself. Boundaries build an inner authority that shines outward. Learning to set boundaries is a process. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, even frightening. Saying no may make your voice tremble. Standing firm may bring guilt. But just like exercising a muscle, the more you practice, the stronger you become. Each time you uphold a boundary, the fear weakens and the sense of empowerment grows. Eventually, it feels natural to protect your peace without apology. Boundaries also create freedom. Without them, we spend our lives managing resentment, repairing damage, and hiding frustration. With them, we can relax, knowing we have marked where we end and others begin. This freedom makes relationships more joyful because love flows best when it is not poisoned by unspoken anger. When both people respect boundaries, trust deepens and connection becomes sustainable. Boundaries are not about control, they are about balance. They remind us that we are responsible for our own happiness, not anyone else's. They remind others that they cannot offload their chaos onto us without permission. And they remind everyone involved that respect is the foundation of every healthy connection. When balance is present, relationships become lighter, clearer, and stronger. Tolerance often disguises itself as patience, kindness, or even love. We convince ourselves that letting things slide is noble, that absorbing discomfort proves strength. Yet, every time we allow disrespect to pass unchallenged, we are writing a silent rule book for how people may engage with us. They read our silence as permission, our endurance as acceptance, and our restraint as weakness. What we tolerate sets the standard more than what we declare. Consider the moment someone raises their voice at you in anger. If you say nothing, they learn that yelling is an acceptable way to communicate with you. The next time, the volume might rise higher and the words might sting deeper. You didn't explicitly invite the behavior, but your tolerance created the opening. Each repetition carves the pattern deeper until it becomes the default way they treat you. Disrespect rarely arrives fully formed. It begins small. A sarcastic comment that cuts too deep, a promise broken without apology, a dismissal of your feelings with a laugh. At first, you tell yourself it isn't worth addressing. You excuse it as stress, humor, or forgetfulness. But each unspoken protest strengthens the behavior until what once was shocking becomes routine, normalized by your tolerance. Tolerance shapes environments in powerful ways. In a workplace, if an employee tolerates being interrupted in meetings, the interruptions multiply. Soon their ideas are overlooked and their voice is drowned out. If a manager tolerates lateness or poor performance, the team learns that mediocrity is acceptable. Standards are not set by rules on paper, but by the behaviors that are consistently ignored or addressed. Relationships follow the same pattern. If you tolerate lateness, you teach that your time is not valuable. If you tolerate dishonesty, you teach that truth is optional in your presence. If you tolerate neglect, you teach that love can be passive and inconsistent. The person on the other side learns not from what you hope, but from what you allow. Tolerance, more than intention, writes the script of connection. Tolerance also erodes self-respect. Each time you swallow your discomfort, you betray your own voice. At first, it feels like keeping the peace, but over time, it feels like losing yourself. The unspoken message you send to others is the same message you send to yourself, that your needs do not matter enough to defend. This self-betrayal weakens confidence and fuels resentment that simmers silently. We often mistake tolerance for strength because enduring is easier than confronting. It feels safer to absorb the pain than risk conflict. But true strength is not an endurance, it is an expression. To say, "This is not acceptable," requires far more courage than to remain silent. Endurance without boundaries does not build resilience, it builds resignation. The longer it continues, the heavier it becomes. The cost of tolerance shows up in hidden ways. You may notice yourself feeling drained after certain conversations or dreading interactions with specific people. You may replay words in your head long after they were spoken, wishing you had responded differently. These are signs that your silence has created internal unrest. Your body feels the weight of disrespect, even if your voice never speaks it aloud. There is also a ripple effect to tolerance. When you allow others to mistreat you, those observing, whether children, colleagues, or friends, learn the same lesson. They may believe they too must tolerate disrespect to keep relationships intact. Silence does not just shape your life, it shapes the culture around you. Every time you excuse what should not be excused, you reinforce the cycle for those watching. Breaking the cycle of tolerance requires self-awareness. Ask yourself, what patterns keep repeating in my life? Which behaviors do I consistently endure but never address? These repetitions point to the silent rules you have created through tolerance. Once you identify them, you can begin to rewrite the script. But rewriting requires bravery because tolerance often feels safer than confrontation. It helps to remember that addressing disrespect is not about aggression, but about clarity. You do not need to scream or accuse to break the pattern. You only need to name what happened and how it affects you. A calm, firm statement often carries more power than angry silence. By speaking clearly, you change the rules, signaling that tolerance is no longer the standard. There will be resistance when you stop tolerating what you once allowed. People accustomed to your silence may push back, accuse you of overreacting, or attempt to guilt you into compliance. But this discomfort is part of the process. You are resetting expectations, and resistance is a sign that the shift is working. Stand firm, and the new tone will eventually become the norm. Tolerance is particularly dangerous because it is invisible. Outsiders may not see the small concessions you make daily, the moments you let slide, the words you swallow. From the outside, the relationship may appear healthy, but inside you know the toll it takes. Invisible wounds often cut the deepest because they lack witnesses. Tolerance ensures the damage is hidden but not healed. It is tempting to believe that love means overlooking flaws endlessly. But love without respect becomes fragile and distorted. To truly love someone is to hold them accountable to the standard of respect, not to excuse every wound they cause. When you demand respect, you do not destroy love, you protect it. Tolerance does not nurture love, boundaries do. Even in small daily exchanges, tolerance matters. If a colleague continually makes jokes at your expense and you laugh along, the jokes escalate. If a friend borrows money without repayment and you stay quiet, the borrowing continues. Small actions snowball into larger patterns. The tolerance you show in small moments becomes the culture of your relationships over time. The key is consistency. You cannot tolerate disrespect once and expect people to treat you differently later. Each instance of silence erases the progress you've made in setting standards. Consistency teaches others that you mean what you say. That respect is non-negotiable. Without it, your boundaries dissolve and tolerance resumes its quiet rule. Ultimately, the tone of every relationship is established by what you allow. You may hope for kindness, honesty, and respect, but if you tolerate the opposite, those hopes collapse. People do not rise to meet your expectations. They settle into the standard your tolerance provides. When you stop tolerating what diminishes you, you create space for relationships that elevate you. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. When you say no, you often feel your heart race, your hands tremble, and your voice falter. That discomfort is proof that you are stepping into courage. Saying no is rarely easy, but it is one of the clearest ways to declare your worth. Every no you speak becomes a shield that guards your time, peace, and dignity. Many people confuse politeness with virtue, believing that always saying yes makes them kind and generous. But endless yeses eventually hollow out your spirit, leaving you resentful and exhausted. Real kindness cannot come from a place of depletion. It must come from wholeness. Saying no when you need to is not cruelty, but honesty. Without that honesty, every yes becomes a performance rather than a gift. Standing firm requires courage because it invites conflict. People may argue, pressure you, or attempt to shame you for refusing. Yet the discomfort of conflict is far lighter than the burden of constant compromise. When you cave to avoid disagreement, you sacrifice yourself for temporary peace. Courage chooses long-term respect over short-term comfort, knowing that real peace only exists when both sides are honored. The act of saying no also builds trust with yourself. Each time you honor your limits, you prove to yourself that your well-being matters. Over time, this builds self-confidence, making future boundaries easier to uphold. Conversely, every time you betray your own no, you weaken your trust in yourself. Courage in small moments strengthens you for bigger challenges, one no at a time. Courage is especially necessary in relationships where love and pressure often intertwine. A partner may demand more than you can give, assuming that love means unlimited sacrifice. But without courage, you risk erasing yourself in the name of devotion. Love that requires the death of your boundaries is not love at all. Courage says, I can love you without losing me. The workplaces also demand courage in boundary setting. It takes bravery to tell a manager that you cannot take on additional tasks or to correct a colleague who speaks disrespectfully. Fear of retaliation often silences people, but silence becomes complicity. Courageous employees and leaders alike understand that boundaries create healthier, more sustainable work cultures. Without courage, exhaustion and exploitation become the norm. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It may sound like a simple no, I can't commit to that, or I need time for myself tonight. These small moments of courage accumulate, creating a life where you are not constantly stretched thin. Courage is not dramatic, it is consistent. The quiet defense of your worth is as powerful as the loudest declaration. Children learn courage from watching adults set boundaries. When a parent models saying no respectfully, the child learns that it is safe to protect themselves. They grow up knowing that their feelings and needs are valid, even in the face of pressure. Without these examples, children may become adults who fear confrontation and confuse compliance with love. Courage is a legacy passed down through action. Courage is also about resisting guilt. Many people feel guilty the moment they say no, as if they have failed someone. But guilt is not always a sign of wrongdoing. Sometimes it is simply a sign of growth. When you are used to overextending, any act of self-protection feels unnatural. Courage teaches you to endure the guilt until it fades, leaving only the strength of self-respect. Fear often whispers that saying no will cause rejection. And yes, sometimes people will leave when you stop giving endlessly. But courage reminds you that anyone who disappears when you set boundaries was not truly invested in your well-being. By standing firm, you filter out those who only valued your compliance. Courage clears the way for relationships rooted in respect, not exploitation. Saying no also sharpens clarity in your priorities. Every yes you give takes time and energy, and without courage, you give them away carelessly. But when you protect your no, you align your life with what truly matters. Courage allows you to reserve your resources for the relationships and goals that honor your soul. Without it, your days are scattered in service to everyone but yourself. Courage protects not just your time, but your emotional energy. When you lack boundaries, you carry burdens that do not belong to you. Other people's anger, stress, and irresponsibility. Standing firm says, I will walk with you, but I will not carry what is yours. This is not abandonment, it is wisdom. Courage allows compassion to exist without self-destruction. Standing firm often feels lonely, especially in the beginning. People accustomed to your compliance may react with disappointment or anger. You may question yourself, wondering if you are being too harsh. But courage means holding steady even when the crowd resists. Over time, those who truly value you will adjust, and those who don't will drift away, leaving space for healthier bonds. Courage also requires practice. The first time you say no, your voice may crack. The second time, you may over-explain. But with each attempt, you grow steadier. Courage is not a switch you flip. It is a muscle you strengthen. Eventually, standing firm feels less like battle and more like breathing, natural, necessary, and life-giving. It is worth remembering that courage inspires respect. People may not like your boundaries, but they often admire your clarity. In fact, many who resist your no secretly wish they could embody the same strength. Courage is contagious. When you model it, you give others permission to do the same in their own lives. Standing firm not only protects you, but empowers those around you. Courage is not about shutting others out, it is about showing up authentically. When you stand firm, people know who you are and what you stand for. They no longer have to guess where the line is or worry about hidden resentment. Clarity builds trust, and trust deepens connection. The courage to be clear is the foundation of meaningful relationships. Respect is the foundation upon which every meaningful relationship stands. Without it, love becomes fragile, trust becomes unstable, and connection begins to decay. Affection without respect quickly turns into dependency, and passion without respect becomes control. Respect is not a luxury to hope for, but a necessity to demand. Any bond that lacks it will eventually collapse under its own weight. Respect is shown in the small, everyday gestures. It is in the way someone listens when you speak, in the way they honor your time, in the way they respond to your boundaries. When these gestures are absent, no amount of love can compensate. Love says, I feel for you, but respect says, I see you and value you. Without that recognition, even love feels empty. Many people confuse respect with fear, but they are not the same. Fear forces compliance, but respect invites cooperation. Fear silences voices, but respect encourages them to be heard. Fear may produce temporary order, but respect creates lasting connection. Relationships thrive on respect because it preserves the dignity of both people involved. In romantic relationships, respect is what transforms desire into partnership. A partner who respects you does not belittle your dreams, dismiss your feelings, or mock your struggles. They may not always agree with you, but they never undermine your worth. Without respect, love feels conditional and unsafe. With it, love becomes a sanctuary where both people can grow freely. Friendships also rise and fall on the strength of respect. A friend who constantly interrupts, ignores your needs, or takes advantage of your generosity erodes trust. Friendship is not sustained by laughter alone. It is sustained by mutual regard. Respect means showing up, keeping promises, and valuing the other's presence. True friendship cannot exist where respect is missing. Respect is equally crucial in families. Too often, family ties are used as excuses for disrespect, as if blood alone justifies mistreatment. But real family is defined by how members honor one another. Respect within families means allowing individuality, listening without judgment, and creating space for boundaries. Without it, family becomes a burden rather than a source of belonging. Workplaces demonstrate how quickly environments crumble without respect. A manager who disregards employees' input creates disengagement. Colleagues who gossip or undermine each other destroy collaboration. Productivity may remain for a while, but morale dies, and eventually the work suffers. Respect is the fuel of teamwork, innovation, and loyalty. Without it, even the most talented teams falter. Respect is non-negotiable because it speaks to the core of human dignity. To be respected means to be acknowledged as worthy, regardless of status, wealth, or role. When respect is missing, people begin to shrink, doubting their own value. Over time, this erodes self-esteem and fosters resentment. Mutual respect is the antidote, reminding both sides that worth is constant and unquestionable. Sometimes people settle for relationships where respect is absent because they fear loneliness. They accept insults disguised as jokes, manipulation disguised as love, or neglect disguised as business. But tolerating disrespect does not save you from loneliness. It creates a deeper kind of isolation. It is better to be alone with dignity than surrounded by people who diminish you. Respect is not about perfection, it is about effort. Mistakes will happen, words may slip, and emotions may run high. But a respectful person owns their mistakes, apologizes sincerely, and works to repair the damage. Disrespect, by contrast, dismisses pain and avoids accountability. The difference between the two is not in the absence of conflict, but in the presence of humility. Respect also requires reciprocity. You cannot demand what you refuse to give. To receive respect, you must extend it. Listening with care, honoring boundaries, and valuing perspectives even when you disagree. Mutual respect creates balance, ensuring that no one is diminished while no one dominates. This balance is what keeps relationships healthy, fair, and sustainable. In conversations, respect means allowing space for another voice. It means not preparing your rebuttal while someone else speaks but truly listening to understand. It means responding with empathy rather than dismissiveness. Respectful communication creates safety where people can express themselves without fear of ridicule. Without it, dialogue devolves into battles where no one wins. Respect shows itself in the way time is honored. When someone consistently shows up late or cancels without consideration, they send the message that your time is less important. Respect values punctuality not because of the clock, but because of the person waiting. Time is one of the most precious gifts we give, and respect treats it as sacred. Disagreements test respect more than anything else. It is easy to be respectful when you agree, but the real measure is how you behave in conflict. Respect does not resort to insults, stonewalling, or contempt. It allows for disagreement without dehumanization. A relationship that cannot withstand respectful conflict will crumble at the first serious challenge. Children flourish in environments of respect. When their feelings are acknowledged rather than dismissed, they learn that their voice matters. When their boundaries are honored, they develop confidence in protecting themselves. Respect teaches children to value both themselves and others. Disrespect, on the other hand, teaches fear, compliance, and silence that may echo into adulthood. Respect is also about consistency. A person who respects you in private but disregards you in public does not truly respect you. True respect does not change with setting or convenience. It is steady, dependable, and unwavering. Consistency proves that respect is not conditional but integral to the relationship itself. Without respect, power imbalances dominate. One person dictates while the other submits. Over time, this dynamic erodes trust, replacing partnership with control. Mutual respect dissolves these imbalances by affirming equality. It ensures that no one's voice is silenced and no one's needs are ignored. Equality cannot exist without respect, and neither can love. Choosing respect is also choosing growth. When two people respect one another, they push each other to rise higher, knowing that encouragement will not come with belittlement. Respect creates space for vulnerability, and which in turn creates space for transformation. Growth thrives in environments where dignity is preserved. Without respect, growth feels dangerous and people remain guarded. Boundaries are only as strong as the consistency with which they are upheld. A boundary spoken once but ignored the next time loses its meaning quickly. People pay attention not only to what you say, but to how steadily you live it. If your limits shift with every mood or circumstance, others will assume they are negotiable. Consistency transforms boundaries from words into reality. When you first set a boundary, people may test it, they may push gently, or they may challenge it boldly, waiting to see if you truly mean it. If you enforce it once but cave the second time, you teach them that persistence works. The test is not in the boundary itself, but in your ability to stand by it. Consistency shows that your line is firm, not flexible. Think of a traffic light. If red sometimes means stop, but other times means go, chaos would erupt on the streets. People would lose trust in the rules because they are unpredictable. The same happens with boundaries. Inconsistency breeds confusion. When your no is sometimes yes, and your yes is sometimes no, people do not know how to engage with you. Clarity comes from repetition. Children reveal this truth clearly. A parent who enforces bedtime one night but allows endless freedom the next creates confusion. The child learns not discipline but negotiation. However, a consistent bedtime teaches structure, reliability, and trust. The same principle applies to adults. People respect boundaries more when they see that you respect them enough to hold them consistently. Consistency also protects your credibility. When you say you will not accept a behavior and then tolerate it later, your words lose weight. Over time, people stop taking your boundaries seriously, not because they doubt your worth, because they doubt your resolve. A person's reputation is built on reliability, and this includes reliability in self-respect. Consistency makes your boundaries believable. Workplace dynamics offer a vivid example. An employee who insists on leaving at a certain hour but frequently stays late undermines their own standard. Colleagues quickly learn that deadlines and requests can always stretch past limits. On the other hand, a consistent worker communicates their availability clearly and follows through. The team adapts, understanding that the boundary is firm and predictable. In relationships, inconsistency sends mixed signals. If you tolerate disrespect one day but protest the next, your partner becomes uncertain about the rules. They may assume your reactions depend on your mood, not on values. This erodes trust because the relationship lacks stability. But when your boundaries are consistent, respect becomes second nature, woven into the daily rhythm of connection. Consistency also preserves emotional energy. When you enforce a boundary steadily, you prevent constant debates or renegotiations. People stop testing the limits because they know the outcome is always the same. This frees you from repeated conflict and exhaustion. Boundaries become less about constant battles and more about natural guidelines, quietly shaping interactions. It is important to note that consistency does not mean rigidity. Life is flexible and situations evolve. But even within flexibility, your principles must remain steady. For example, you may adjust how you enforce a boundary, but the core message remains unchanged. Consistency is not about stubbornness, but about clarity of values that do not shift with convenience. At times, inconsistency comes from guilt. You set a boundary but feel guilty when someone reacts negatively, so you relax it. Yet this only deepens the cycle because people learn to use guilt as leverage. Consistency requires tolerating discomfort in the short term to preserve respect in the long term. Boundaries without consistency are little more than wishes. Consistency is also tied to self-trust. When you hold your line again and again, you begin to trust yourself more deeply. You know that your words are backed by action and your integrity remains intact. Inconsistent boundaries, however, create internal doubt. You feel torn between your values and your actions, leaving you unsettled. Self-respect flourishes only in consistency. Friendships highlight this principle as well. If you say you value honesty but tolerate lies, your words lose their force. If you claim you need reciprocity but keep giving without limits, your boundary crumbles. Friends quickly adapt to the standards you reinforce consistently. They will either rise to meet them or drift away when they realize they cannot. Either way, consistency filters your circle. Consistency also provides safety for others. When people know exactly where they stand with you, they feel more secure. They do not have to guess whether today you will be forgiving or resentful, open or closed. Predictability fosters trust. Your consistency teaches others that respect is not a moving target, but a stable expectation they can rely on. Even in self-discipline, consistency matters. If you promise yourself to rest, eat well, or pursue goals, but break those promises regularly, you undermine your own growth. Self-boundaries are just as important as external ones. Consistency builds habits that sustain your well-being. Without it, progress becomes erratic and self-respect diminishes. Consistency transforms boundaries into culture. In workplaces, families, and communities, repeated enforcement shapes collective behavior. Over time, people stop questioning the boundaries because they become norms. Just as laws gain power through consistent application, personal boundaries gain strength through steady practice. The culture around you adapts to the tone you enforce. The fear of conflict often tempts people into inconsistency. You may hold your boundary once but drop it when faced with resistance. Yet inconsistency only multiplies conflict in the future. People keep testing, unsure where you truly stand. Consistency, though difficult at first, eventually reduces conflict because it eliminates uncertainty. Resistance fades when limits remain unmoved. Consistency also demonstrates self-respect without words. You do not need to defend or explain endlessly when your actions remain steady. Over time, people learn more from your behavior than from your speeches. The silent lesson of consistency carries greater weight than any justification. By living your boundary, you show its importance more clearly than by arguing for it. Ultimately, consistency is about integrity. It aligns what you say with what you do, turning values into lived reality. It ensures that your boundaries are not seasonal or situational, but constant expressions of your worth. Without consistency, boundaries are fragile promises. With it, they become the structure upon which respect is built. The way others treat you often mirrors the way you treat yourself. If you constantly belittle your own worth, dismiss your needs, or downplay your achievements, people will follow your lead. They assume you have already set the standard for how you deserve to be treated. Self-respect is therefore not only personal, but relational. It signals to others the level of dignity you expect. Self-respect begins with internal dialogue. The words you use with yourself create the foundation of your identity. If you speak harshly, criticize endlessly, or minimize your strengths, others will sense it and mirror the tone. But when you practice compassion toward yourself, acknowledging your flaws while affirming your value, you radiate confidence. That confidence becomes the model others follow. The choices you make daily reinforce your level of self-respect. Choosing to prioritize rest, healthy relationships, and meaningful work demonstrates that your well-being matters. When you tolerate chaos, toxicity, or neglect, it communicates the opposite. People watch not only what you say, but also what you accept. Your decisions broadcast the invisible script that guides how others interact with you. Boundaries are the clearest expression of self-respect. A person who values themselves does not allow constant disrespect, exploitation, or dismissal. Enforcing boundaries is not selfish, it is an act of self-worth. But drawing lines, you show others that your time, energy, and emotions are precious. People quickly adjust to the boundaries you protect, treating you accordingly. Confidence and self-respect are deeply connected. Confidence is not arrogance, but the quiet assurance that you belong in any room you walk into. When you carry yourself with that assurance, people respond with respect. They sense you will not shrink for approval or bend for validation. Confidence teaches others to meet you on equal ground rather than placing you beneath them. Self-respect is reflected in how you handle criticism. A person lacking self-respect either absorbs every insult as truth or lashes out defensively. But self-respect creates balance, allowing you to accept feedback without losing identity. You can hear what is helpful and dismiss what is harmful. This poise teaches others that your worth is not open for negotiation. Relationships thrive when self-respect is present. If you respect yourself, you will not settle for half-hearted affection, dishonesty, or disregard. You will expect reciprocity because you know your value. When others see that you honor yourself, they are more likely to honor you as well. The tone you set becomes the rhythm of the relationship, guiding how love and care flow. In professional settings, self-respect sets the stage for authority. Employees and colleagues respect leaders who respect themselves. A leader who undervalues their own voice quickly loses influence, while one who stands firmly in self-worth commands attention. Authority rooted in self-respect is not domineering, it is steady. It tells others, I take myself seriously, and you should too. Friendships are shaped by self-respect as well. Friends who see you disregarding yourself may assume they can do the same. They may take advantage, dismiss your needs, or minimize your importance. But when you honor yourself consistently, friends learn that your loyalty is valuable but not blind. They know respect is the price of your presence, and they either pay it or drift away. Self-respect is not just about how others view you, it is about how you view your future. A person with self-respect does not sabotage their own growth by staying in destructive cycles. They pursue opportunities knowing they are worthy of better. Others watch this pursuit and follow suit in their treatment. When you demand more from yourself, people naturally give more in return. Teaching others begins with modeling. Just as children learn from observing parents, adults learn from the behavior of those around them. If you want kindness, Practice kindness toward yourself. If you want respect, show respect in the way you carry yourself. Your example teaches louder than your words, setting the silent tone for every interaction. Self-respect also influences the energy you bring into spaces. People can sense when someone values themselves. It shows in posture, speech, and presence. You walk differently when you know your worth. That energy commands attention without demanding it. Others instinctively rise to meet the standard you have set by the way you inhabit your own skin. A lack of self-respect invites exploitation. People recognize when you doubt your worth, and some will take advantage of it. They will push boundaries, extract favors, and offer little in return. But when you demonstrate self-respect, those same people either adjust or remove themselves. Self-respect acts as a filter, allowing only those willing to honor your value to stay. Teaching others through self-respect does not mean never bending or compromising. Relationships require flexibility, but flexibility is different from surrender. You can compromise without losing yourself when your foundation is strong. Others learn from your ability to be both firm and adaptable. This balance communicates maturity and sets the standard for mutual growth. Self-respect is also a shield against manipulation. When you honor yourself, guilt trips and pressure lose their power. You no longer bend to keep peace at the expense of your soul. People who once controlled you with disapproval realize it no longer works. By respecting yourself, you change the rules of engagement, teaching others that manipulation has no place in your life. Your standards reflect your self-respect. If you surround yourself with chaos, people assume you tolerate chaos. If you fill your life with order, integrity, and kindness, they learn those are the terms of entry. Standards are not about being picky. They are about being aligned with your worth. You attract treatment that mirrors the standards you enforce. Even silence can teach others how to treat you. The way you respond or choose not to respond sends a message. If you stay silent when disrespected, silence becomes consent. But if you address it calmly, silence becomes strength, a refusal to normalize poor behavior. Self-respect guides when to speak and when to withdraw, shaping how others adjust to your presence. Self-respect is a daily practice, not a one-time decision. Each choice, each interaction, each word to yourself either strengthens or weakens it. Others notice these patterns more than isolated moments. They learn how to treat you by observing your consistency over time. Every day becomes a lesson you teach through the quiet authority of self-worth.